there's a lot of different little side benefits that aren't really in the main package of the monthly payment. So that it can include CHAMP VA healthcare eligibility for your spouse and dependent children.
And that's huge. That's a big deal.
Going along with that, DEA benefits, just called, it's for Dependents Educational Assistance.
Yeah.
So those benefits are available to your dependents for financial support when they go to college. I believe it also assists maybe with vocational training as well.
I believe it does.
For dependents. So that's huge. It's not only, it's not just benefits for you, but it also directly benefits your family as well.
Because we know that veterans' disabilities do affect their entire families and not just them in isolation. Another, I would say, is permanent and total. Right? The VA can determine that your 100% service connection is permanent and total. And what that means is they're not going to be evaluating you in the future. So you're not going to be in 5 years brought in for a CMP exam where they try to determine whether your lumbar spine condition is any better than it was the last time they evaluated, or your mental health symptoms have not changed since your last evaluation. And that's a huge deal, especially after veterans are finally awarded the 100%. The last thing they want to know is that they're going to have to go back to a CMP, right? So do I have to do another CMP? That's the big question. One caveat to that would be that once you get to that point and the permanent and total is established, if you initiate another claim at the regional office, if you file for something that could trigger a CMP or an exam of some sort, that there's potential there that you might have an evaluation of your condition that's permanent and total. So just a note there.
Another thing that kind of opens the door, or that 100% opens the door to, is some types of special monthly compensation. So special monthly compensation, or SMC, is exactly what it sounds like. It's additional monthly compensation that's added on to your disability payment. So there are certain types that you have to have certain ratings for. For example, for SMCS, that is if you are rated 100% for one condition and you have other service-connected conditions that add up to 60% by themselves, you're eligible for a little additional money for that. Basically, VA recognizing, okay, you already have a severe disability at 100%.
Right.
You also have these disabilities. We'll give you a little more money.
There are a lot of different benefits that come with being 100% service connected from the states. And it really varies from state to state, but you definitely want to look in. You can look it up online and see what benefits the state provides for 100% service-connected veterans. A lot of counts with the DMV, a lot of like hunting license, fishing license, things like that. In some states, there are property tax exemptions for veterans, and some of these can be really helpful, so definitely should look into that.
I know in Florida, you get 100%, you get that disabled veteran license plate, which is a big deal, lets you get around places.
Right.
And I know as well, you can also be entitled to certain commissary privileges, base privileges, even if you're not active duty anymore, if you're rated at 100%. There's also a benefit as well. If you look forward, if you're rated 100% for a condition 8 years, for at least 8 years prior to your passing, and you have been married to your spouse for at least 8 years prior to your passing, your spouse will be entitled to IC benefits, which is for surviving spouses or dependent children of veterans who pass away. You can be eligible for that in a couple different ways, but if you've been rated 100% and married for 8 years prior to your passing, there's no questions asked.
So you don't have to establish that it's related to the cause of death or anything at that point, and that's huge.
Yeah, because you can get these DIC benefits if the cause of death was related to service, but oftentimes if that cause of death wasn't service connected before, we're on an uphill battle. It's not impossible, but it takes a lot longer to get the widows and the dependents the compensation that they deserve. So 100%, really nice. That's a nice way to just take a little bit off your mind.
Absolutely.
Hello and welcome to the Hill and Ponton Veterans video blog. I'm Matthew Hill.
I'm Carol Ponton.
And today we want to talk about a question we get all the time, and that is, how do I get 100% rating? And we just see vets who are frustrated. Either they have a single disability they're trying to get up to 100%, or they have multiple disabilities that are combining together. The thing about the VA rating system is that it's counterintuitive, let's say. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. It's 10% plus 10% equals 19%. And the closer you get to 100%, your ratings combined, the harder it is to get 100%. We have a veteran who came to us and had a 90% rating and then got a 40% rating on top of that. Well, the way the VA math works, that actually only equals 94%. So the 4% is, goes away in the veteran
rounds down to 90.
Rounds down to 90. So it is really hard, but we have some thoughts on what you could do.
Well, first of all, a lot of times veterans will say they have a back problem, and they are getting compensated for their back, but not the radiculopathy. Or they could have...
And the radiculopathy is pain, loss of sensation, loss of muscle tissue.
Down either leg or both legs. And veterans don't realize you can get ratings, very high ratings for each leg, and that will bring you up. The other thing, what if there's incontinence? What if there's erectile dysfunction? There are a lot of things that can go with just the one problem that they have. Including depression. A lot of times people are very depressed because the back limits them so much in ability to work or to do other things. So that's the first thing. Or have you filed everything you should file in connection with your claims? And these are for people on both sides, but if you're working, that's your option. That's what you have to do. If you're not working, you make sure you filed the unemployability, because once you file that, they have to consider whether the disabilities that you have keep you from working. And if they do, they'll grant you 100% under unemployability.
Yeah, so, going back to the back, you see this a lot with some of the bigger disabilities, back, diabetes, I think heart, TBI in particular, but it'll be the main disability, they'll have a rating for it. Parkinson's is a huge one, but then there's all the problems that it causes, and those can be higher ratings. With the back, a pretty common rating, unfortunately, is a 20%. A veteran with a 20% rating, to me, has a very severe back problem. But it's almost easier to get a 20% rating and another 20% rating for both legs for the radiculopathy than it is to get a higher rating on the back itself. So, as Carol said, you want to put everything out there that it might be causing, so that you can get ratings for individual pieces and hopefully get you up to 100%. But if you get stuck, say you have that back where it's 20% and the 20% is for the legs. Don't quote me on this, but I think that's 60%.
Right, because it's one common etiology.
Yeah, and so that would give you eligibility right there for unemployability. And that's a way to get out of this rat trap, if you will, of the way they put ratings together, because you're fighting tooth and nail for another 10% here, 20% there, and your rating doesn't even go up. So again, that would be something, if your disability, service-connected disability, is preventing you from working, then that's something to apply for there. As far as your ratings combining together, I'd invite you to look in our VA rating calculator. Essentially, it puts all the ratings together for you and lets you know what your ratings combine to and what you might need as far as a further rating to get the higher rating.
Because remember, this is complicated. The VA, first of all, if you have a 40% disability, they consider that only 60% of your body is left. So the next time you get a rating, the rating is 20% times 60%, not 100%. So you're left with 12 rounded down to 10. And then there's another concept called, say that both legs are impaired and they're rated. Then they give you a little extra for that. So that's why it's really hard to do it without this table, this calculator that we have, but it will tell you where you are. But another thing I wanted to talk about, Matt, when you have, say the person is still working, if they get Parkinson's, a lot of times they'll just give them 30%.
Right.
And that's for Parkinson's, but they're not considering weakness in your legs, difficulty walking,
Difficulty talking.
difficulty talking, thinking, remembering. You want to make sure all of these individual problems are broken down and rated separately, because that will give you a much higher rating. You don't want to take just a 30% rating for Parkinson's when you have all of these other problems. And that goes with diabetes. Think about the diabetes. You may get 40% if you're on insulin and you have to regulate your activities. But you can get so much more from the peripheral neuropathy that may be in your hands, your legs, your feet. You need to make sure all of these things have been evaluated.
Well, thank you so much for that question. We'd ask you to send us more. This is Matthew Hill with Carol Ponton on our Hill and Ponton Veterans video blog. Thanks so much.
Hi, and welcome back to Hill and Ponton's VA Disability Blog. I'm Natalia Joffrey, our firm's manager.
And I'm attorney Rachel Cheek.
So last time we talked a lot about PTSD and a 70% rating. And we really got into that because I guess it's probably one of the more common ratings, right, for PTSD.
Even if it's not common, it should be. A lot of veterans fall within that, at least that 70%
That range.
criteria.
Okay. So now today we wanted to talk a little bit more about beyond that. So 100% rating. What would that take?
Absolutely. So again, I do want to say for a lot of time throughout this, I'm going to be referring to PTSD. It is one of the most common conditions that we see. But again, all mental disorders are rated under the same criteria. So symptoms that come from depression or anxiety, other mental disorders, they would be rated under the same criteria.
Okay, perfect.
So it's not impossible to get to 100%, but it is pretty difficult. As we'll see, a lot of these symptoms are very severe and really impact everyday life to the point where sometimes you're not able to function.
Let me just stop you for a second. When you're saying pretty difficult, you're saying and not to minimize it, because obviously PTSD is a significant condition and disorder, but when you're saying that, you're saying if it's only PTSD, right? So we're not talking about a combination of disabilities. We're talking about if your only condition is PTSD, then it can be difficult to get 100%.
Precisely, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. No, I want to make sure. I want to understand too. Okay, so, but if that is the case, then what kind of criteria would probably need to be met for PTSD or any mental disorder, I guess? So
within the 100% criteria, there are symptoms such as persistent delusions or hallucinations. And so that's things like you're seeing things that aren't there, you're hearing things, maybe you're hearing people walk around, you're at your house by yourself. You're always hearing this. You're seeing things that aren't really there. Maybe your spouse is in the room and is able to tell you, no, there's nobody there. You might still be seeing that. I hear a lot of times people will see shadows move all the time out of the corners of their eyes, always on alert. Another symptom that is considered within this criteria is danger of hurting oneself or others. Okay. And so we talked a little bit about impaired impulse control in the last video within that 70% range. Within this, and we also discussed suicidal ideation. This symptom, again, persistent danger of hurting oneself or others, that's something where you're not just having violent thoughts or suicidal thoughts, you're acting on it, or there's a danger of you acting on it. Okay. So this would be someone who's been hospitalized for suicide, or someone who's had attempts. You don't necessarily have to be hospitalized, but recurrent attempts over and over. Someone who is having these thoughts of hurting maybe their family members. Sometimes, this condition is so severe, it makes you do things, or makes you consider things that you would never really consider. So it can be something like that. Unfortunately, a lot of times there can be the domestic violence involved, and that's a danger, persistent danger of hurting others.
So having those issues or having those instances documented, it's really important.
Absolutely.
So if you have
Hi, Hi, welcome back to Hill and Ponton's YouTube channel. I am attorney Melanie Williams, and today we're going to talk about going from a 90% rating to a 100% VA disability rating. Before we go into exactly why it's so difficult to turn a 90% rating into a 100% rating, we need to go over how the VA does their rating system, how it works, and why it might be worth pursuing that 100% compensation if you're at 90% already. If you are a disabled veteran who's in the VA system, you may already know how this works if you already have a rating. The VA has, I'm going to call it a strange way of combining percentages. We call it VA math because ultimately your percentages are not added together. So as you may know already, when you are assigned a VA disability rating, it ranges from a 10%, or actually it starts at 0%, but the compensation starts at 10% and it goes up to 100% from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. And each one of those percentages is assigned a different amount, a different monetary amount that you would receive on a monthly basis. The way that they determine which rating you're assigned to depends on what's called the diagnostic code. So every disability that you can think of, the VA lays it out in this diagnostic code with the symptoms, with the severity corresponding to a rating percentage. And so they assign that percentage, and you can have different percentages for different conditions. So for example, tinnitus, you would be given a 10% rating. If it's PTSD or depression or mental condition, it's usually assigned either a 10%, 30%, 50%, 70%, or a 100% rating. So once you are assigned a rating for each of these individual conditions, the VA then combines them, doesn't add them up, combines them. So the way that they do it is a person who does not have any disability they are 100% able or functioning. Once they assign a rating, it means you are 10%. So if they assign a 10% rating, it means you are 10% disabled. They then take that remaining 90% of which you are able and determine what the next percentage is from there. If you are assigned a rating percentage for more than one condition, the VA combines those. So let's say you are given a 70% rating for PTSD as well as a 50% rating for migraines. If you add those, they combine to way more than 100. So that's not what they do. What they do is they have a formula where they combine them. So if you are rated at 70% for PTSD, then you are considered 70% disabled. They take that remaining 30% of which you are considered able, and that 30 is where they take the next 50% from. So 50% of 30 is 15. So you go back to that 70% of PTSD and add that 15 and you get 85. That 85 then rounds up to 90. And so 90% is then your combined rating. And so once you have that 90%, that's the amount that you will be receiving each month. The amounts of each percentage vary, as I discussed before, and I'm going to go through each one so that you know what the difference is and why it's important to have the difference between 90% and 100%. You'll see what I mean. Keep in mind, this is for the year 2021. They change each year. They adjust it for cost of living. And so these numbers that I'm giving you are applicable right now in 2021. When we start with 10%, the amount that you would receive each month is $144.14. At 20%, the amount that you would receive each month is $284.93. Now, once you get to 30% is when you can start receiving benefits for your dependents. But I'm going to go through these amounts just for a veteran alone so that you can see and compare, because each veteran is going to have a different amount of dependents and et cetera. So a veteran alone at a 30% rating would receive $441.35. At a 40% rating, you would receive $635.77. At 50%, you would receive $905.04. At 60%, you would receive $1,146.39. Are you still with me so far? So at 70%, you would receive $1,444.71. At 80%, you would receive $1,679.35. Now pay attention to the difference here. At 90%, you would receive $1,887.18. At 100%, you would receive $3,146.42 each month. That is a significant difference. That is the biggest jump between percentages. So that's why that 100% is something that we definitely want to aim for. Now, in order to do that, obviously it's going to depend on your symptoms, the severity of your symptoms, how many different conditions you're service connected for. And oftentimes, unfortunately, it's very difficult to get to that 100% combined rating because, as we discussed, the way that they combine the ratings, it makes it harder to add up the different percentages and the remaining, you know, how we talked about the 70% and the remaining 30% that you're considered able, that number gets harder and harder to add up. So there's this other thing called TDIU, total disability based on individual unemployability. You may have heard of it before. We've talked about it on here. There are several videos on it. Individual unemployability is the same thing as 100%. So you get the same monetary amount, that $3,146.42. IU, 100%, same amount. In order to get IU, and again, IU stands for individual unemployability, that's what we call it. In order to get IU, it's when a veteran can't work because of their service-connected conditions. So the VA will essentially bump you up to that 100% if your percentages don't combine to that 100. So if you're not working or you're not able to sustain employment, if you find that you apply for a job, you start working, but you can't keep the job for more than a month because you can't get along with people, or you can't go into the office because of your panic attacks, or you have to leave early, or you're not able to perform the job. All of those things are things to take into account for whether a veteran is able to maintain employment or not. And so when the VA finds that your service-connected conditions prevent you from working, you are then assigned that individual unemployability, which is the same as 100%. Now, one caveat or thing to kind of keep in mind is that there are percentage requirements for the individual unemployability. And that's either you have one condition that's rated at 60% or a combined total of 70% with at least one condition being at 40%. I know that that sounds like a lot. Again, we have other videos and blogs where we kind of go into that more, but we are also happy to help if you call and you have a case where you think you might be entitled to IU and they're denying it. Please give us a call and we'd be more than happy to look into it and see if we could help. But that's all I have for today. So thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments if you liked the video or if you have questions and you'd like to know more. Make sure to
be dignified. You need to be bigger than you are. No.
Get
your money and get in your damn basement.
Are you trying to tell me that if I wanted medals, I should have did that in the military, where I actually got my medals? Wow, this is kind of weird. So you're like here.
I'm here.
Like in my space.
Yeah, in your space, your basement.
I turned the claymores off. Obviously, you noticed that.
I appreciate
You're
that.
You're in one piece.
I saw the dogs were put up in the kennel. That was nice too. You know I can't run fast.
This is not Photoshop.
No.
Or Final Cut.
No.
Matt's actually here.
I'm here. He's here too.
So with that,
this exists. This whole beautiful
he's in the
compound. Yeah, in the basement exists.
So today I wanted to kind of walk through a bunch of ratings. This is a claim that somebody got med boarded out, got a bunch of ratings. We'll throw them on the screen. I just wanted to get what your lawyer brain thinks about, where this guy's at and where he could go with it.
Yeah, so Craig, this is one you and I were talking about where the guy's at 90. And how often do we hear people say, hey, I'm at 90. How do I get to 100? And if you're at 90, you probably appreciate that VA math is broken. Is that a kind way to say that? Or just completely asinine?
Asinine.
Yeah. Yep. So, you're at 90. Let's say you're at a straight 90, and then all of a sudden you get a 40% for a new back rating. Well, that's great, right? But no, that's only a 94% because you only get 40% of what you're healthy, and the VA considers you 10% healthy. So we got this up on the screen here. This fella who's 90% has a host of just all kinds of ratings, lots of orthopedic. And the question is, what can this guy do that's going to be the least amount of effort to get him up, right?
Yep.
And I think just looking at this, first of all, I'd like to know more about his problems with his orthopedic stuff, like with his knees. he has knee strain, but does he also have instability of his knee? That's one that the VA
Three ratings, right?
Right. And so he's got, does he have instability? Does he have arthritis? So those would just be a dime here, a dime there. But I'm sure.
Is it instability and then flexion and extension?
Yeah.
Right? So
Flexion,
did they
extension,
combine things or, so that's.
Yeah. So, but those are 3 separate ratings.
Right.
And then.
In each knee.
And then,
right.
Then each knee. And, if you've watched the boot camp, I'm sure he's gone through the whole bilateral factor together.
Okay.
And then that actually helps you get higher at the end. But again,
and this guy's already got some solid bilaterals. He's got them upper body and lower body.
Yeah.
How many bilaterals can you have? Just upper body and lower body?
Just upper body and lower body, but think about how many joints you have.
That's extra 8 points.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's,
right.
Right. I mean, you can get a ton on all those.
I think my bilateral factor is just for my feet. So it's probably like 2.3% or something.
But when you get close to the end, that matters.
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh, huge.
So this gentleman is 93% if you were to do all the VA math together. I look at this and I see that he's 0% for sleep apnea. I got to tell you, I've never seen that. They either deny the sleep apnea or they grant it with 50%. So I'm assuming he's not on a CPAP machine.
Right.
So,
and obviously he's not worrying about the diagnosis of the neck or the nexus. He's service connected.
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, no CPAP.
Yeah. So I would look to see, can I get a CPAP? Or do I have hypersomnolence? And if he has one of those, that'll bump him up and hopefully get him up to that 95. All he has to get is 95%, and then he goes straight up.
He's at 9, right. So you need a 30%
right.
or a 50%, done.
Right.
Sayonara. Thanks.
And then the other one I look at, and this is me beating my drum here, if he's 70% coming out of the military with major depressive disorder, that to me is huge. VA does not give away any kind of mental health ratings at all. I mean, they want to deny you straight out. They want to say this is prior to service. They want to say you have a personality disorder. Or they say, fine, here's 10%. But they gave him a 70. That to me says, is this guy going to be able to hold down a job? If he can't hold down a job, I'm looking to get him 100% through unemployability just for that. And then...
special monthly compensation.
Exactly.
Yes. And K.
And K. Yeah, right. So we kick in...
Just to start off with.
Yeah, kick in more to start off with because you can show that one disability is 100% or IU and the other disabilities obviously combined to 60. So that's another $300-400 on top of the $3,500 now.
Yep.
So
35. Yep.
That's a great way to go. But so you look at the knee strains, you look at wasn't there ankle problems?
What about GERD at 0%? What's your take on GERD? Not being a doctor or knowing the symptoms, I get it.
I did sleep in a Holiday Inn last night. I don't like GERD as much because they can just screw with you on that. It's kind of like hearing loss. Like even as bad as it gets, they're still going to lowball you. So let's say, that's a great question. So let's say, okay, you fight hard and you get the 10% rating for GERD. Well, you take 10% of 93. You take, 10% of 7 because that's the leftover.
Right.
And that's less than 1.
Right.
And so you're still at probably 94% and you didn't even get up. So I'm looking to fight. I mean, my whole thing is let's fight for the ones that make a change.
Sleep apnea for sure is worth looking at for sure. GERD, maybe not.
Yeah, and the bilateral factor, which you said is so huge with the knees in particular.
Hypertension, so that's objective 100%. So you either have the numbers for it or you don't, right?
Well, with hypertension, it's funny. The max, this is one of those crazy things. The max I typically see is about 10%.
Right.
It's controlled by medication, but it's gone up. But if somebody has hypertension at 10 or 20, I'm looking for secondary problems. I'm looking for heart problems. I'm looking for strokes. I'm looking for kidney problems. Like that just causes all kinds of awful issues. So you could have a 10% for that and then 100% for your heart and 100% for your kidneys, just secondary to that.
So since we're in the 1 year presumptive period, this guy's not even completely, he's out. He hasn't been a veteran that long. He doesn't even need to worry about secondaries because everything's direct service connection.
Because it happened in service.
Maybe there's other things he didn't file a claim for.
Yeah.
Like not bad. He's got probably 20 things listed. He's got about 15 things on deck. Yeah, maybe he needs to just go file some more.
Yeah,
claims.
I mean that's a great point. It would be what I'd call secondary service connection, but since it's
to
so
a normal
close,
veteran,
right? But since it's so close, it probably started in service anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if he has a kidney problem,
he just got out.
Yeah,
or that's the way the VA looks at it in that year
right.
period, right? But most of us don't even figure this shit out till way long after. Deviated nasal septum. My experience with that and having it is 10% is kind of high.
Yeah.
0%'s kind of.
Yeah, they nickel and dime you on so many of these on here. I mean, yeah, I think we talked reflux as well, 0. I mean, maybe you get up to 10. It's some of these you just you want to avoid. You want to look at the diagnostic codes and see how can I get higher. And that's where I would look at, again, we talked about sleep apnea and then the depression.
And listen to the path of least resistance, right?
Exactly.
Like that's why we're making these videos. That's why we do whatever, blog post content. There's a reason why it's called path of least resistance.
Right.
Just believe us.
Right.
Like, just because you have it doesn't mean, well, I'm going to be, you could be that one guy that wins it. But there's an easier way to go, just go the easy way.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, you're here to get your max compensation, your service-connected compensation. You get paid and get the heck out of the VA system and not have to worry about this. So you don't want to try to nickel and dime if you don't have to.
But I want the VA to recognize my disability.
That's what I hate about you, Craig. You always need to be dignified. You need to be bigger than you are. No! Get your money and get in your damn basement.
Are you trying to tell me that if I wanted medals, I should have did that in the military, where I actually got my medals, and the VA doesn't have, they don't do like brownie buttons or nothing.
they do little merit badges, yeah.
So, exactly. Not worth, if you want recognition,
go somewhere else.
Yeah, don't go to the VA.
But get your money that you are entitled to at the VA. That's what you want.
All right, I think that pretty much covers it. Good point on the knees. Is there, right knee strain, left knee strain, 10%, probably for pain on movement would be my guess, or they see a lot more and they're just doing the low ball.
Exactly, the low ball. They don't want you to have 100% coming out. I mean,
which is clear.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. And the funny thing is, people say, "Oh, I got 90%," but 90% is not 90% of the payment of 100. 90% is like what, $1,800? 100%.
Yeah, it's about $1,300 away from.
Yeah, I mean it's like 60% of the payment. So you just got to watch out how they do these things.
And that's good. Do you have any kind of guesstimation? I don't know how much when people roll out. I think this is good, especially since I rolled out with 0. How many people you think they just put them in the 90s? Instead of just give them that 100.
Well, I think anybody who's 100, who's getting med boarded out, they're going to try to throw in the 90s. Because, for one thing, they see that it's serious enough to get the guy out of service. But they're like, well, we don't want to start him at 100 because, that's a lot of money the government's paying you. And the VA likes to save money wherever they can.
And it's more than you probably were getting paid while you're if you're an E1 or an E2, right, with the tax factor.
Yeah.
I don't know how much E1 is now, but it's probably not $3,500 a month tax free, which is another, that's like 45.
Yeah, it's good money, but it's money you deserve.
All right, so that's one way to look at this. If you're on active duty, get those complaints in.
Yeah,
some of this might fit on you, maybe it won't.
Yeah. All right, that's a good one, Craig.
Cool.
It's good being here.
Bye.
It'd be awesome if you could just make